Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. And today's a special day. I dinged level 53 today. 7 more levels and I get my epic flying mount. Yeah. I share my birthday with none other than Chuck Norris and Osama bin Laden. Yeah, illustrious company, I'm sure you'll agree. I don't recommend getting old, by the way. It does kind of suck. I highly recommend you try to avoid it wherever possible. Anyway, moving on swiftly. That's enough about me. What's going on here? Well, it's a World of Warships. Standard battle, obviously. Featuring War Agent here in a ship that I must have covered before at some point, but if I have, I don't remember it. The Soviet Tier 10 battleship, the Slava. The Slava is something of an oddity. I'm not saying it's a bad ship, not at all. In some respects, it's downright overpowered, but in others, it's distinctly mediocre. So let's look at the bad things first. One, it's huge and badly armoured. The midsection deck is only 32mm thick, making it highly vulnerable to high explosive spam, and the bow and stern are only 25mm thick. That's cruiser standards of bow and stern plating, which means I think there's only one or possibly two battleships in its entire matchmaking spread that are not capable of overmatching the bows of this thing and potentially citadeling it from the front. So that's kind of bad. Overall, in fact, the Slava's survivability is pretty bad. She doesn't have a massive amount of hit points to begin with, and she only has 3 base charges of the repair party consumable, although you can see that War Agent here has 4. He's obviously taken the... I can't remember the captain skill that gives you an extra charge of all of your consumables, but that's only 1 consumable. She's got no other utility, no hydro, no radar, obviously she's a battleship, but no spotting plane, no patrol fighters, nothing. Just the 3 base charges of repair party. She's also technically kind of undergunned. While the turrets do have good firing angles, she only has 9 406mm guns. That's kind of the standard armament for a Tier 9 battleship, not a Tier 10. But these are very, very special 406mm guns, as we will see as this battle develops. Oh, the team have already lost their first radar cruiser. Good start. Oh, it's a bugged replay again, by the way. You probably noticed on the pre-battle loading screen it was only showing War Agent's team, and the same at the top of the screen here during the battle itself. But once again, I've enabled the team lineups on the left and right hand side of the screen so you can get some idea of what's actually going on. Now, there. 22,000 damage. Did you see that dispersion, by the way? Because the Slava has some of the most peculiar dispersion characteristics of any battleship in the game. While the Slava's armour may be bad, while it might be quite sluggish, while its overall survivability might be pretty terrible, it is definitely not a brawler. If you absolutely definitely need to have something slapped within an inch of its life right on the other side of the map, call the Slava and accept no substitutes. So, I mean, that was kind of underwhelming, only 7,000 damage. But just watch as he unloads the armour piercing again at that pricing, and have a look at the horizontal dispersion, how far the shells deviate to the left and the right. You ready? Watch this. Lovely broadside target there. Shots out, although it is German, you know, you shouldn't expect citadels at that kind of range, not with turtleback armour. There's that one sort of outlier shell on the right, but all of the rest of the shots landed more or less within 100 metres of each other, slap bang right in the middle of the target. Of the 9 shots that he fired, 8 hit. 1 on them ricocheted, but 8 hit. What's going on here? That is absurdly accurate. It is. And the thing is, when you're shooting at a broadside target, horizontal dispersion doesn't really matter that much. Because when the target's broadside on, if some of the shells go to the left, oh, there's another bitch slapping, and some of the shells go to the right, they're still going to hit the target because it's broadside on. Now, what matters when you're shooting at a broadside target is vertical dispersion. How high or low the shots go. Are they going to go long, or are they going to drop short? The Slava has that covered too. Now, I don't know if you've been paying attention and actually saw the vertical dispersion, but let's just check out what happens when he shoots at his next target. Ooh, that's a lot of torpedoes. I think that's all of the torpedoes. Okay, The pricing again. Shots out. Now watch and see how far up or down these shots deviate from each other. Okay, he's not following those all the way in, but it didn't look like they were deviating by much, did it? And 7 of those 9 shots hit the target. What's going on here? Because typically when you're in a battleship, if 30% of the shots that you fire manage to hit the target, you're doing pretty well. 30% accuracy is not bad for a battleship. The Slava's accuracy is closer to 70 or 80%, because it basically doesn't have any horizontal dispersion, and it doesn't have any vertical dispersion. And the shell velocity is so high that you don't really have to lead the target very much. With the Slava, where you shoot is almost always where you hit. You don't watch shells sailing harmlessly above the target and landing a kilometre away on the other side. You don't watch shells dropping short. You don't watch shells from the same turret, yes, Gneisenau, I'm looking at you here, disappearing a kilometre off to either side of the target. You just get hits. And also, she has absurdly good penetration values. I mean, there are plenty of other ships in the game that are known for the accuracy of their guns, but they don't always combine superb accuracy with very, very good armor-piercing penetration characteristics. And the Slava does. And yet the peculiar thing about the Slava's accuracy is that it only really applies at long range. It's another reason why this ship isn't a brawler. The closer you get to the target, the more wonky the dispersion becomes, because, I don't know, reasons? It's a funny ship. And I don't mean funny ha-ha, although it can be funny. No, I mean funny peculiar. It just... There's no logical reason for why it should work this way. This is just the way it works. Another 8,000 damage. Oh, and only 3 hits out of the 9 fired. That's quite disappointing for this thing. Oh, by the way, the team aren't getting their arse handed to them. I don't know how much attention you've been paying, but they're down to 270 points in the enemy team with 3 cap circles, although both teams have 2 kills, but the enemy team have 3 cap circles, and they've just reached 600 points. They are more than 300 points ahead. And there's basically 0 opportunity here for War Agent's team to get any of those cap circles back at the moment. The enemy are dug in around those cap circles in the islands around them like ticks on a dog's back. So this is going to be a bit of an uphill struggle. You see the Yamagiri up there? See how much health he's on? Yeah, that's what happened when he tried to take one of these cap circles back. Losing their radar cruiser early on didn't help his team's chances, of course. Speaking of things that aren't really helping his team's chances, do you see the Golden Lion tucked in over there behind the islands out to the west? I mean, on the one hand, getting that close to the enemy in a cruiser does mean that you can cycle your airstrikes really quickly and give them very little chance to avoid them, but it also means... yeah. Oh well. The enemy team are now 500 points ahead. It's been a fairly low casualty game so far, however. I mean, we're nearly halfway through the battle and there have only been 5 ships sunk. And War Agent's holding his fire on the Worcester here because he wants a more broadside target than that to shoot at. Unfortunately, yeah, too little too late. Well, good news, the enemy Delana has been spotted. Bad news, War Agent is busy reloading. Even more bad news, well, a bit of good news first. The Yamagiri's torpedoes are on track and have sunk the Worcester, but of course the Yamagiri himself got sunk in return, tried to smoke up, but well, the Worcester had shots out that killed him, and even if the Worcester hadn't gotten him, I'm fairly sure that the enemy Delana would have. Oh, torpedoes, that could be very bad news for the Zhao. No, he's dodged them, that's good, that's good. The enemy team are now more than 500 points ahead. In fact, they're almost 600 points ahead. This is not going well at all. Not going well at all. And the Cyclone is closing in. And this is extremely bad news for the Slava, because the Slava does not do well at close range. And when the Cyclone closes in, visibility drops to 8 kilometers. He's going to have to get in there and start brawling. Something that the Slava is particularly bad at doing. The good news is that his division mate in the friendly Delana has managed to slip in and take that central cap at Bravo. But it is not even close to being enough. The enemy team are now 600 points ahead. And with 2 of the cap circles, that gap is only going to get bigger unless they can start sinking enemy ships or flip more of the cap circles. But It's difficult to see how they can get more cap circles looking at the disposition of the enemy team. In fact, it's difficult to see how they can even hold on to that central cap at Bravo. The enemy Summers is lurking around over there. And that Preußen has just turned up as well. But of course, they're more than 8 kilometers away, so War Agent can't see them. He can see the minimap, and you can aim at a spot on the minimap, but you do that without the benefit of a target lock, so the chances of you actually hitting anything are slim. The friendly Delana up ahead was clearly within 8 kilometers of something because he just got the crap clapped out of him, and for a second there, the enemy team go up to over 900 points, which is only redressed momentarily by the friendly Shimakaze taking out the enemy Yamagiri, but that cap circle is now being flipped. There's definitely a destroyer over there. Oh, hang on a second, the Marco Polo managed to get a kill, taking out the enemy Sejong. Okay, that's bought them some valuable breathing space, but the enemy team are still flipping that central cap. And with the Cyclone in full swing, unless War Agent gets to within 8 kilometers of something, uncomfortably close and where he really doesn't want to be in a ship like this, he's not going to see anything to shoot at. The Zhao's managed to get a torpedo kill on the Preußen. The enemy team is still flipping that central cap, though. The Summers is definitely in there. Oh, by the way, the Slava's secondaries are garbage, right? If a destroyer pops up at a range of 8 kilometers or less, that is not where you want to be in a Slava. And a destroyer just popped up at a range of 8 kilometers or less. Fortunately, he can see the destroyer. The destroyer cannot see him. He's looking for the targets on the far side of the cap circle at Alpha, none of which are within visual range yet. Broadside on, pinned up against an island. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. The front turrets are out. It's only 6 shots, but hey, it's a Citadel and nearly 20,000 damage. Oh my god, what is going on here? Why are the enemy team attacking? You know you're 500 points up, right? And that Summers actually isn't going to be too much of an issue, because as long as War Agent keeps going, he's going to get into cover behind the island and out of line of fire of any of the Summers torpedoes. And the secondaries are hammering away, and of course the rest of the team have spotted a destroyer. They're assisting. And even though the Slava's secondaries are terrible, well, even a broken clock tells the right time twice a day, and there's 43,000 damage against the broadside Ushakov. The Minnesota, despite getting clapped, did manage to take the Marco Polo out, but he gets finished off by the Mecklenburg. And the Summers is down. That Ushakov just ran out of friends, and he's backing off, which under the circumstances is the only real thing that he could do, but he should never have been there in the first place. Why were you clown shoes attacking? Shots out, 1 turret only, not enough. Quickly checks for other threats. At the moment there are none, or at least none that he can see and deal with. I mean, there are other threats around, but right now the Ushakov is the primary problem. The Ushakov, of course, is shooting at the Zhao, because why not? It's a cruiser. Even though he can, with his 18-inch guns, easily overmatch the bows of the Slava and Citadel it from the front. And it's not the Zhao that's going to kill him. Actually, it might be the Zhao that kills him. It may very well... No, it's the secondaries from the Mecklenburg. War Agent, I think, going for the disabling turret shots there, when he really probably should have just raised the sights a little more and gone for the superstructure, which would have guaranteed him the kill, but still 217,000 damage. Probably around about half of it at point-blank range. And the Shimikazes managed to kill the Alsace threat down to the southwest, which just leaves the Dalana and the lone surviving enemy battleship, the Shikishima, who could be anywhere. But based on the fact that while War Agent's team are flipping the cap here at Alpha, somebody on the enemy team is reflipping the cap at Bravo, so I think we have a fairly good idea of where at least one of them is. Here's the enemy team's problem, though. While they are a good 350 points ahead, there's 6 minutes of this game left, and they only, even if they flip that central cap, have a 1 cap advantage. They will have to hold on to that central cap, and there's only 2 of them left against 5 enemies. So the enemy team's best hope is if they have stuck together and they're able to mass their firepower, and that's a Shikishima, it's got some firepower, and they're able to mass their firepower against the surviving members of War Agent's team coming into that cap circle one at a time. And War Agent is playing directly into their hands. The good news, the Shikishima is broadside on, has shit armour, and has just fired its guns. The bad news, here comes the Dalana. And that thing has extremely dangerous torpedoes. He made the right choice, of course. He switched fire to the Delana instantly, but he wasn't able to sink it, so, yep, here we go. Death by torpedo. Any second now, the Delana's going to launch its torpedoes. The Delana never launched its torpedoes. Which just leaves the Shikishima. And, yeah, that is an extremely compromising position in which to be in any battleship, particularly one that has the Yamato, i.e. not very good armour scheme. With one of these things, I mean, you can still die. He gets the turrets turned around, he can overmatch you and citadel you from the front, and he's trying to do exactly that, but somehow, yeah, I don't know how War Agent's getting away with this. But the Shikishima definitely isn't. There's more citadels. That's 280,000 damage done. Most of it, by the way, at ranges of less than 8 kilometers, which is not something that this ship is even slightly good at doing, and yet, well, here's the evidence. The poor old Shikishima now has to make a choice, because the rest of the team are turned up now. Who is it that he wants to expose broadside to and get clapped by? And honestly, there are no good choices. Well, there was a good choice. That choice would have been made about 5 minutes earlier when they were 700 points, 2 kills and 2 caps ahead with less than 100 points to go before they won. With 10 minutes left on the clock. And instead they chose to attack in the middle of a cyclone against ships that they couldn't see until it was way too late. And you know what they say, never interrupt the enemy when they're making a mistake. Because if we did, we wouldn't have episodes of A Game of Thrones. So, War Agent with not far short of 300,000 damage done in the Slava. The majority of that done at ranges of 8 kilometers or less, thanks to being in a cyclone, something that this ship is utterly unsuited for. And yet, well, there it is. Take care, folks, and I'll catch you next time.